All right, from one Bryan to another, we got one more guest here on today's program. That is professional handicapper Bryan Leonard from wagertalk.com. Bryan, how's it going today, man?
Everything's going well, and I believe I'm the only one that spells my name correctly.
Yes, that's true. Bryan with a Y. And of course, everyone's going to be thrown off here doing your segment on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, swapping with Ralph Michaels, who's doing a lot of stuff here for those early season college basketball tournaments. So very much appreciate you guys setting that up for me, and very much appreciate you hopping on this Wednesday show here. And it's a very busy time of year with everything that we're covering, but also we throw a holiday into the mix here for this week. And I want to ask you about that, Bryan. We've got 28 teams in action on Wednesday in the NBA. So 14 games before the Thanksgiving holiday, 13 games on Black Friday, right after the holiday, league-wide day off on Thursday. But, you got a time crunch, you got family obligations, you got holidays, all kinds of other bullshit going on. What are some of the tricks that you use to maybe narrow your focus when you've got, say, a 14 or a 13 game card in the NBA?
Yeah, what I try to do is give a little bit of an edge to the road team because they're not doing any of the preparations or bringing in family for the holidays, that kind of thing. The teams are going to be home on Thanksgiving weekend or whatever. They've got more to worry about. I don't know if it's as big for some families as others, but there's certain families out there that it's huge when they get together for the holidays, and those are the ones that I think it affects it a little bit more. If you're on the road, you don't have to worry about it as much, and you're away from all of that. So I think the home court is a little bit lesser around the holidays as it normally would be.
Yeah, and I think when I did my situational article for the NBA over at BangTheBook.com, I believe 5 teams play on the road Wednesday and Friday. So you got 25 teams that are home for at least some part of the Thanksgiving holiday, whether they're traveling back in Wednesday night or they're traveling out Thursday night for a Friday game. So for the most part, the NBA tried to do what they could to accommodate a lot of these teams, but the 5 that play road games both Wednesday and Friday, maybe teams that you do want to take a look at. And it may be a little bit counterintuitive because some people may look at it and say, oh, well, these guys have to be away from their families. They'd rather be home with their wives and children. But you know what? Being out on the road, like you said, a lot less hassle because then you're just with the team and doing whatever the team's doing out on the road.
Yeah, if I try to put myself in the position of the players, I think it's a relief to not be home during the holidays with a lot of the stuff that happens in normal families. So I'd prefer to be on the road, to be totally honest with you, if I was a player.
So in terms of the rest of the NBA here, we got only a couple of games tonight, very small slate because, as I mentioned, 14 games coming up tomorrow night. We had a big card on Monday night as well. So a lot of teams playing 4 and 6, 3 and 5 with the Thanksgiving holiday, which for some people really won't be much of a day off. Any thoughts on the Tuesday night games tonight if you don't have premium selections out for your clients on them?
No, as of now, I haven't done anything for today's action. Dallas right now is playing terrific ball. They're just been amazing.
How good is Doncic, man?
He's just terrific. I did a show yesterday, and I said I don't remember a player since LeBron James when he was young that it was appointment television whenever you could watch him play, and Doncic is like that. I've watched every game I can that he's on the court, and he's just, people like to say that a player makes his teammates better. You could see it when he plays, how much better his teammates are. And I don't know what kind of drop off it'll be, if he gets injured, what the lines will be if he sits out. But it'll be really interesting to see if they can make that high enough where the drop off is, because I think the drop off is huge between him being in the game and he being on the sideline. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Well, and one thing that is worth pointing out here is that I haven't seen anything. Maybe you've seen something more definitive, but we know that Kawhi Leonard doesn't play back-to-backs. Certainly looks like he's going to play tonight because tomorrow the Clippers play Memphis. So we should get a full Clippers complement tonight. Tomorrow night, I don't know if anybody's going to play for the Clippers. It wouldn't shock me at all if George sits, if Leonard sits. If you find somebody that's asleep at the wheel and posts a Memphis overnight line, maybe want to grab it because that one's probably going to be on the move down.
It very well could be, and that's the guessing game we have, especially early in the day, as to who's going to play. Which, the NBA has never been a sport that a lot of people get rich off of. It's sort of like the NFL. You kind of try to grind out a profit in it because the information is so far out there, and the lines are so tight. And now having to worry about who's going to play and who's not makes it even harder for somebody to make a living betting on the NBA.
Well, we've got everybody in the league here. It's played really anywhere from about 16 to 18 games or so. The Wizards have only played 14. They've got a little bit of a busy schedule here the rest of the week. But, Brian, we got roughly 20 or so data points, 15 to 20 data points on a lot of these teams here. Anything really stand out to you as a great surprise, a team that maybe you're looking to continue to play on, a team maybe you're looking for some regression from that you want to fade, anything like that?
Yeah, there's a few teams. We're just talking about one of them being Dallas. Dallas lately is starting to put it all together, playing their best ball of the season. A team that I didn't expect a whole lot out of. I thought, they'd be a decent team, but I didn't expect them to play the way they have, and they're really coming on as of late. The Miami Heat are another team that I didn't expect a whole lot of, and I've been pretty impressed out of Miami. Golden State's a team that seems to play a good game every 2 or 3, and then has the ability to be blown out more blown out, if that's a word, blown out more often than any other team in the NBA. Atlanta's a team that I think has some talent, but they, other than the beginning of the season where their best player was going off, they've been a disappointment. Yeah, there's certain teams that I think are a little bit better than what they've shown, but a lot of this you could take a look at. For example, like yesterday, I played Philadelphia against Toronto, and both teams have been the type of teams that have been able to tread water during the game and then come on in the fourth quarter and play a good fourth quarter. And since Philadelphia had the better players, than Toronto, I thought Philadelphia, as long as they're in that game, they're going to come out and win it. And they had led that game by about 7 with a few minutes to go. And then just the opposite happened. They fell apart, and Toronto gets the victory. In fact, Embiid doesn't even score a point for the first time in his career. So, it's a little bit tough, but there's certain teams that I think are starting to rise. The cream is rising to the top a little bit. And unfortunately, Dallas was the team I was looking to play, but they've been blowing everybody away. So now I don't think I'm going to get the advantage as if they were winning by 1 or 2 points.
One last thing to ask you about here in the NBA, then we'll transition over to the gridiron, is that, you and I are both big-time baseball guys. And for baseball, for handicapping it the way that you and I do, generally tends to require a pretty good sample size. And you and I don't want to fall victim to those small sample sizes that are out there. But I've talked about this before, and I don't want to call it a revelation per se, but something I have noticed in both the NBA and the NHL, teams get very streaky. They'll play really well for a long period of time, then they'll lose 2 or 3 in a row, pick it back up, win a bunch of games in a row again. Looking at the standings right now, Milwaukee's won 8 in a row, Toronto 4 in a row, Pacers 3 in a row, Nets 4 in a row. And then in the East, you've got losing streaks of 3 for the Magic, 5 for the Hornets, 7 for the Hawks. Over in the West, the top 4 teams all on 5 or more game winning streaks right now. The bottom teams, Grizzlies have dropped 4 in a row. Warriors have dropped 3 in a row. Rockets have also lost 3 in a row. I feel like in the NBA, you can get some good opportunities just playing on streaks, because whether it's a confidence thing or a momentum thing or just everything's kind of clicking, feels like you kind of want to hop on some of those here and just kind of ride them out until they end.
Yeah, just let's take our hometown Cleveland Cavaliers, for example. They played terrible until they played up against Boston just a couple of weeks ago. And in that game, they played Boston pretty well, but they came up short. And after the game, the head coach, Beeline, said, he goes, the way Boston moves the ball around, that's the way we will move the ball around. And then I heard some quotes from some of the players saying, now we see it in person. Now we see what it can do. And like for the next 5 or 6 games, the Cavs played that way, and they were great. Then all of a sudden, now they're back to the way they've been playing before, which tells me that maybe the other teams have seen what Cleveland was doing. They go, hey, maybe we need to scout this team a little bit more, and they found the weakness. So now it comes back to Cleveland and the veteran college coach in Beeline to try to get the team back to the way they were playing before, maybe find a different strategy. But it's sort of a chess game where you will see these weaker teams get off to a nice little run every once in a while, or the better teams slumping, and then all of a sudden a few games go by, then they say, okay, well, there's something wrong here, or this team is doing something different. Let's go back and let's take a look at them again, and teams make adjustments. It's sort of like we talk baseball. Hitters can sometimes they get up there and they're hitting 700 for a week or two, and they're just seeing everything as clear as day. Then there's other times where they go on an 0-30 streak where they just can't see the ball at all. It's just, I think a lot of it is a mental thing. And, for myself, I've been on a losing streak for my handicapping, and I get a little bit tentative. I've always been one to press it when I'm winning and pull back when I'm losing. So overall, you get too many losing streaks. But, at this point, games that would fly off the page with me a month ago are ones that I'm really struggling with right now.
All right, well, with that, we transition over to the college football side of things, and I think we're all very happy to put Maction to bed tonight because it has been deplorable to watch, to say the least. Akron, a 4-touchdown home dog as they try to avoid going 0-12, which they're probably not going to do. Western Michigan bet up to 9.5 before coming back a little bit here against Northern Illinois. Western Michigan, a lot to play for. Northern Illinois, nothing to play for. So kind of a microcosm of the MAC here with these two games tonight. Any thoughts from you? Any leans one way or another?
No, not really. Don't know if I could trust Ohio in a season where they've just underperformed all season long, but I know that I just cannot trust Akron. And, a lot of people look at that game last week and think, man, they were just a few plays away. And if the Akron players just come into that and, get some confidence out of it, maybe they could compete here, but I just don't see it. If I'm 0-11 and I'm a 4-touchdown underdog at home, I don't see much. Obviously you want to finish the season with a win, but you got to be realistic. And the other game is Northern Illinois has been a major disappointment, a team that's been going to bowls for as long as I remember, just having a lousy year for themselves. So it's a motivational thing. And you would think, these teams get to play on national television in front of the nation, they would give their best. But, when you take a look at the power ratings by conference, or the MAC is like 4 points lower than any other conference. And it used to be they were equal with the Sun Belt. Now the Sun Belt has exceeded them. The MAC right now, I hate to say it, should be dropping down to the FBS level because they're just not the same in football as they've been in the past, and they were never great.
No, they weren't. But at least our Zips basketball team looks okay, and the soccer team's always good. So we got that, right?
Won the national championship a few years ago. So yeah, it's just football. I just don't think they can recruit in football the way they can in other sports.
And baseball back with former Reds third baseman Chris Sabo. So, hey, maybe something will start looking up for the athletic department here at some point in, some of the bigger sports. But in any event, we look at Friday here. We start with game 321, 322, Texas Tech and Texas. And this one's up a little bit from 9 to 10, just about market wide out there with the Longhorns getting a little bit of love in this one. Brian, do you agree with the line move here?
Not at all. I don't understand it. Texas Tech's a team that's not going to be going bowling this year. They were 0-4 in games decided by a touchdown or less. Last week, lose by 3 to Kansas State. Week before, lose by 2 to TCU. 2 weeks before that, lose to 3 to Kansas. This is a team lost by 3 at Baylor. They are much better than what their record shows. Texas is a team I faded all season long. Now after losing last week to Baylor, now they've got a bowl game, so their season will continue on. I really don't see a lot of reason for Texas to come to this game where, from my perspective, this is the bowl game for Texas Tech. They're a better team than what they've shown. My power ratings are showing that basically Texas is 4 points better. If you give them the full home field, it still comes up about 2.5 to 3 points too high here. And the motivational factor for Texas Tech. I love the Red Raiders here. I think this is one of the best bets on the board this week.
Yeah, I got this line 8 myself, so I disagree with the line move here in this one. And I like what you said, and this is a very important thing here. Some of the 4 and 7 teams out there, or 3 and 8, whatever the case may be, some of those teams may mail it in this week. But when you've got a game against a rival, this is almost a little brother, big brother type of game where, yeah, these two teams are in the same conference, but you're playing Texas. I mean, growing up, if you live in Texas, that's where you want to play. And this game has a lot of recruiting implications to it too. So, yeah, these 4 and 7 teams, they may not be going to a bowl game, but this week may be their bowl game. I think it's an excellent point that, you don't hear too many people talking about.
Yeah, it's a situation for me. Like I said, I try to put myself in the position of the players, and really I can't see a reason why Texas would take this any more seriously than any other game they played this season.
All right, so we stay on Friday here. We go to game 337, 338, Boise State and Colorado State. Boise State up from 12.5 to 13.5 here in this one. Bryan, I'm real conflicted with this handicap because Boise State wants that New Year's 6 bowl berth. They need to probably put some style points up in order to get there because they trail Cincinnati and Memphis. One of those two teams will lose this week. They need to put some style points up. At the same time, Colorado State is a play-on team for me going into next season. I think they're better than what their record indicates. They're not a bad team at all.
No, they're not. And we just spoke about a team not going bowling, and basically that's Colorado State. Colorado State has lost to some pretty good football teams. They did lose to Toledo at home. That one hurts them, but they've lost to some good teams. Air Force. Wyoming's been one of those teams that can find wins. San Diego State. So it's a situation to me that they've got something to play for here. But as you said, you look over Boise State. The only loss they have all season long is a 3-point loss at BYU in a game that they slightly outgained them. So Boise's been there all season long. But this will be their 4th road game in 6 weeks here. I think the line's pretty much where I would make it. So I'm not seeing a whole lot of advantage here, but the Colorado State should be coming out. And if they could end this season by knocking off Boise State, I mean, that's a huge build for next year.
Yeah, it is. My line on this game is 11, so I'm a little bit below where the market is on this one. But again, my concern is Boise State has incentive to run it up if they get that opportunity. And keep that in mind here this week as well. Some teams do need some style points, whether it's for the college football playoff, like in Oklahoma, or just to try and get that New Year's 6 group of 5 bowl berth, like Boise State, who has to hope that probably Cincinnati wins this week or Cincinnati wins next week. Then Boise State should be in that New Year's 6 bowl game. One more college football game to talk about with you here, Bryan, and this one's an altogether different type of handicap. I think this is a very hard game to read now. Game 389, 390, UNLV and Nevada. And I think you're the perfect guy to talk about this game with. Tony Sanchez will not be retained as the UNLV head coach, but he's coaching the rivalry game. So how do you handle this situation?
Yeah, I thought the timing of it tells me that they're looking towards the future. Obviously, Tony Sanchez, they said that he won't be back next year. They could have easily said this a week from now and it wouldn't have had an effect. But if the kids from UNLV like Tony Sanchez, and everything I've heard is, he's got a good relationship with the kids, just doesn't have the talent there. But they should give a really good effort here, because if he was going to be brought back and they came out and said that he's either going to be brought back or they don't know at this point, there's no extra motivation for the kids to play this game. But now they say that he's not coming back. I think UNLV could really come out and play a really good game. Now, obviously, Nevada's their big rival, so they were going to be up for the game anyway. But it just gives them some extra motivation here to send the coach out on a winning note with the line over 7. And it's interesting that the line hasn't moved after that announcement. It's been roughly 7.5 across the board ever since the line came out. The team really, the last game they played was the final game at Sam Boyd Stadium, and there was a lot of emotion there. So If they can end the season with two emotional wins here, winning the last game at their ballpark and then going on the road and winning the Fremont Cannon over Nevada, I think that's a big jump to what they could do for next year. But of course, Nevada hates UNLV, and it's really a one-way hatred because you know, nothing against Reno. I love the city of Reno, but it's nothing like UNLV, and UNLV is like living in a palace compared to Reno. So Reno hates Nevada, UNLV a lot more than UNLV thinks of Reno. So the extra motivation is always there for the Wolfpack, but I think I'm kind of leaning with UNLV here. Don't know if I'll get there. I'm going to read a little bit more on it, but it wouldn't surprise me if this line goes down a little bit.
Well, and what's amazing here is Nevada's statistical profile is it's strange. It's one that I feel like I've never really seen before in college football. They've been outscored on the year by 126 points. They're 7-4. They're 4-3 in conference play, and they're minus 80 in point differential. Their 4 losses this year: 77-6 at Oregon, 54-3 at home against Hawaii, 36-10 at Utah State, 31-3 at Wyoming. Their wins are by 3, 6, 16 over UTEP, who's awful, 3 over San Jose State, 11, 4, and 7. So a bunch of close wins, a bunch of blowout losses. I mean, this is one of the crazier resumes I've seen for a team here, especially for a team that, if they win this week and win a bowl game, would go 9-4.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was looking at the Oakland, I think it was before last game, Oakland and Denver. There was a 3-game differential, even though they had the same negative point margin in their games. And that's something that you like to use when you're looking at season wins for the following year. But yeah, it's amazing how these games, you know, come down to a coin flip, and which way it goes, one way or the other, could make you into a playoff team that you really don't deserve to be. And that could be the situation with Nevada, you know, if they get a bowl game.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see what to do with that from a season win total standpoint next year, too, because, again, everyone's going to look at them for regression, but at the same time, their 4 losses just happen to be in blowout fashion, and 3 of them on the road. So Nevada will be an interesting talking point as we head on into 2020. And, again, not a bad time to start thinking about some of that, looking at, you know, the full body of work for some of these college football teams. Brian, we transition over to the NFL, and a couple of teams that are very fresh in our minds here. San Francisco and Baltimore. What a bummer that this is a 1 o'clock game here next Sunday. Baltimore 5.5 or 6-point home favorite coming off the domination of the Rams, but the 49ers look pretty damn good themselves on Sunday night against Green Bay. Any idea what to do with this game on Sunday?
Yeah, this is funny because I was interested in the look-ahead lines here, and it was 4.5 before both of these teams played. Then after San Francisco looked so good against Green Bay, I'm trying to think in my head. I said, okay, now what is this going to be? Then all of a sudden Baltimore comes out and just crushes last night. So I like both of these teams. My major concern here is the San Francisco run defense. They're allowing 4.7 yards a carry and on the season, and a lot of that has been lately. I mean, you take a look at what they've done: 5.4 against Arizona, 6.7 against Arizona the first time, 6.8 against Carolina, 5.7 against Cleveland. Teams with pretty good running attacks have been able to run all over the San Francisco defense, and as we've seen by Baltimore, I mean, 5.7 yards per carry is what they're averaging. And you go back their last 6 games, we're looking at 5.9, 7.3, 5.9, 5.1, 5.7, 6.3. And now they're playing a team that doesn't stop the run. From a power rating standpoint, obviously, I think there's value on San Francisco because my ratings are showing them to be probably 1.5, 2 less than Baltimore. But when you take a look at the situation from the matchup standpoint, I don't see how San Francisco is going to stop Baltimore here from that running game.
And of course, too, you've got the the early kickoff in Baltimore. You're coming off the Sunday Night Football game. big win. Monday is kind of useless, cross-country travel, all that type of thing. I think that situationally it stacks up fairly tough for San Francisco. And again, from a matchup standpoint, from the X's and O's, sets up a little bit more difficult for San Francisco too. So we'll see what happens with the line movement for this one. But I think this one should be very, very interesting. Probably the best game on the card here for Week 13. Speaking of storylines, game 471, 472, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. The rematch game after the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph thing. And the funny thing is, Garrett and Rudolph probably not going to play in this game at all. We haven't heard confirmation yet that Devlin Hodges will be the starter for Pittsburgh. That does seem like it's probably going to be the case. And in fact, Mike Tomlin doing a press conference as we're recording this here. So if anything breaks, I'll go ahead and add it to the segment. But Bryan, the Browns haven't swept the Steelers in the regular season since 1988. Do they do it this weekend?
I'm very surprised by this line, at least where it is right now. I think the change of quarterback for Pittsburgh is a positive for the Steelers. They take more chances downfield. They're not nearly as conservative. Cleveland last week was out without their best two pass rushers. And obviously, we all know about their best player being suspended for the rest of the year. I'm surprised that Cleveland's a favorite here, to be honest with you. Cleveland's looked really good the last couple of weeks. They beat that Pittsburgh game for 21-7, but they were +4 in turnovers. When you're +4 in turnovers, chances are you're going to have a pretty good game. Although we've seen some teams this year have these advantages and they just don't take advantage of them. But Pittsburgh, this game means, I think, from a recency standpoint, obviously Pittsburgh with the revenge, they're not used to losing to Cleveland. This is a team that they've dominated since back when I lived in Cleveland 20 years ago. So I just think there's some advantages here with Pittsburgh that are not showing up. And with the quarterback change, Pittsburgh's got to be the way to go. But the problem is, Cleveland loses this game to Pittsburgh here. Basically, their season is over. They'll be, 5-7? They do have an easy schedule going down with Cincinnati twice in Arizona, but they do have to face Baltimore again. And we know Baltimore, hard to say, but Baltimore is in revenge against the Cleveland Browns for losing that game 40-25 earlier. But I like the changes Cleveland's made, but I think this is the week that Pittsburgh gets the victory.
Yeah, and you look at the Browns here. Last time they were favored in Pittsburgh, 1989, week 1 of 1989. That coming from Ralph Michaels, who you'll hear on tomorrow's show. But like I said, it's been over 30 years since the Browns have swept the regular season against Pittsburgh. So we'll see if they're able to do it here. We'll see, if there's any sort of adjustment with Devlin Hodges officially announced. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people kind of making the case that, the Browns kind of living up to expectations now, because early in the season they played such a difficult schedule. Now, as you mentioned, that schedule gets even easier going forward, aside from that Baltimore game. And this is a playoff game for Cleveland. And it's kind of a playoff game for Pittsburgh too, but especially for Cleveland with how they started the year. So 2 very compelling 1:00 games here in the NFL, to be sure. Bryan Leonard, professional handicapper over at wagertalk.com. What's going on over there right now, man?
Right now, we started to do a daily NBA podcast up on YouTube, and I've been taking part of that, and I'll be on that today. Ralph Michaels, that we mentioned, does a daily college basketball show each and every day, and you can pick that up, I believe. Get the link from the website over at Wager Talk, or go to YouTube and get it from there. But videos again today. We're moving it up a day early because of the holidays, so we'll be getting the videos out and hopefully get you some Thanksgiving winners, and hopefully for myself get back on the winning trail here and pick some more winners here and get us back to where we've been all season long. Just had a tremendous year overall, but in a slump right now, and just got to grind our way through it.
Yeah, definitely hoping for the best for you, Bryan. Hoping you get back on track there. And one last note, Devlin Hodges officially the starting quarterback for Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. Bryan, always a treat, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, my friend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
I do appreciate it. Same to you, sir.